Big thanks to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. Stick around to the end to find out how you can stay protected while surfing the web. Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this unique unit deep dive, we're going to be taking a look at the Italians' Genoese Crossbow. It's a very interesting unit. Being an archer, one would assume it's good against infantry. It has a large shield and unique tech, giving it more armor, intuitively making it good against archers as well, and then adds an attack bonus against cavalry. It sounds like the perfect unit, yet it's surprisingly uncommon to see, at least based on that description. Especially given Italians lack halberdier, this is clearly meant to be an important anti-cavalry option for them. And in this video, we'll take a look at how well they perform compared to the Italian archer line, which itself is already above average. To start with their stats in Castle Age, the Genoese crossbow has a slightly lower gold cost, but costs significantly more wood than a regular crossbowman, making it the more expensive unit. For that extra cost, they give you plus 10 HP, plus 1 attack, plus 1 melee armor, but critically 1 less range. A side note is that non-elite Genoese crossbows used to take 50% longer to reload than regular crossbows prior to Definitive Edition, and I think did a lot to hurt their reputation in the player base, which has carried through today to some extent, even though they now fire at the same rate. Of course, they're created at the castle, which is an inherent disadvantage, especially for archers, which require being massed, though notably they train in about half the time of a crossbow, so it's not as bad as that might initially seem. As for more hidden aspects, both move at the same rate, and the Genoese crossbow has a perfect 100% accuracy compared to the crossbow's 85%. That might sound like you could skip thumbring if going for the unique unit, but keep in mind thumbring still gives an extra 18% fire rate increase, so it's worth grabbing for that reason alone. Another tech worth remembering is Pavise, which gives Genoese crossbows, as well as archers for that matter, +1/+1 armor. It's quite cheap, and if you're making Genoese crossbows, you naturally have a castle, so I'm going to assume you have this tech in any comparisons. The most significant hidden difference, of course, comes down to their bonuses. Where the crossbow has +3 against spear units as its only hidden attack, the Genoese crossbow instead has +5 against cavalry, +10 in total against elephants, as they also take anti-cavalry bonus damage, and then +4 against camels and ships, interestingly enough. Despite very similar stats, this is where they differentiate themselves, and the two units start to take on more specialized roles. So that's the unit at a glance, and now let's take a look at how their slightly better stats, but higher cost, can play out in different situations and matchups outside of just cavalry. To start simply head-to-head with equal numbers, the Genoese crossbow packs a bit more punch, winning that exchange without micro. They do engage slightly later from having shorter range, but their +10 HP and +1 attack more than make up for that. On the flip side, if we rebalance to reflect the Genoese crossbow's higher cost, the regular crossbow wins, signifying it's a bit more cost efficient overall. These are Italian crossbows, of course, with +1/+1 armor, but the conclusion holds up even if these were generic crossbows. That said, I don't think this tells the full story, as there are many situations where the Genoese crossbow is superior, and as the first example, its +1 attack makes it much better against skirmishers, dealing 2 damage per shot instead of 1. With equal numbers, skirmishers can beat Italian crossbows with almost 80% of their HP left over, making it a painfully one-sided matchup. Even if we account for the crossbow's cheaper cost, the Genoese crossbow clearly puts up a much better fight, as of course it's dealing double the damage per attack. The Genoese advantage is then even more dramatic against anything cavalry related. To set the tone, their hidden attack bonus is enough to defeat a similar number of significantly more expensive, fully upgraded cavalry archers. In this situation, Genoese crossbows are doing 11 damage per attack, compared to a generic crossbow doing 5 in the same fight, but we're just getting started. Against both light cavalry and fully upgraded knights, Genoese crossbows end up doing triple the damage per shot of a generic crossbow. Even knowing about the attack bonus, it's still easy to underestimate how powerful of a difference that is. And for example, even without micro, a modest group of Genoese crossbows can defeat a greater value of fully upgraded knights, which is 2 units lost. That's the kind of efficiency you'd expect from pikemen, or maybe Genoese crossbows are even a little better than that if you micro and have a decent mass of them. This also applies to a lesser extent against camels, where they deal double the crossbow's usual damage. Similar to knights with balanced resources, this is a very one-sided result. Maybe most impressive though is how they do against elephants, as in that case they have +10 bonus damage. The elephants that hold it the best against them are the Bengalis, with reduced incoming bonus damage, letting them take a few extra shots. Elephants are typically billed as an anti-archer ranged unit, as usually they can just tank arrows to victory, but Genoese crossbows flip that script and can in fact win cost effectively, even after the Bengali's bonus damage reduction and unique tech to fire 20% faster. If the point hasn't been made, Genoese crossbows clearly don't mess around against mounted units. Of course, there are a couple of quirky exceptions, as always in AoE2. The first is the Shravamsha where the dodge mechanic isn't impacted by bonus damage. Genoese crossbows are still better once the Shravamsha's shield is down, so to speak, dealing 2.5 times the damage per shot past that point. Another edge case is the Cataphract, with some anti-cavalry resistance, which it turns out is actually enough to negate the Genoese attack bonus entirely. That said, Genoese crossbows still have one extra base attack, so they still pack a little more punch. Another interesting comparison to highlight is against ships. Remember, the Genoese crossbow has +4 against ships for whatever reason, meaning they end up doing 5 times the damage against warships. If that wasn't quirky enough, the Fireship on the other hand has resistance to anti-ship attacks and enough Pierce Armor that both units do minimum damage. For the most part though, the Genoese crossbow is looking like a strict upgrade over even the Italians' improved crossbow line, given they hold it better against skirmishers, cavalry, and even ships in the odd case that's relevant. There are a few drawbacks though. First, of course, is that one less range, which is hard to quantify, but makes them a little less effective to micro against, say, infantry, even with that +1 attack, as they're always going to start a little closer to danger. One unit type in particular they're worst against, though, is the spear line. In this case, they lack the anti-spear bonus of many archery range units, dealing less damage per shot than both crossbows and even elite skirmishers. Looking at their damage per minute is probably a more accurate comparison given skirmishers' slow reload time. Even then, crossbows are clearly more effective here, while also being cheaper. That said, I don't want to oversell this point, and with balanced resources and micro, you can pretty easily avoid losing a single Genoese crossbow against even a large number of pikemen. I bring this up mostly because Italian cavalry is actually decent, with fully upgraded knights in the mid-game and fully upgraded hussar and cavalier in Imperial. So the crossbow line holds on to at least one niche case as the better anti-spear complement to the stable. On the flip side, other than arguments about difficulties massing from castles, Genoese crossbows are pretty much just a better version. Another advantage they have we haven't even touched on is that their HP not only lets them survive a direct mangonel shot, but their +1 attack then lets them deal double the crossbow's damage in return, making them again feel like a huge upgrade in that exchange. Even against an American civ that lacks stables, the advantages against skirmishers and mangonels alone could justify Genoese crossbows over the regular archer line. So far, we've just been looking at Castle Age though, and now let's turn our attention to what, if anything, changes in the Imperial Age. First off, there's no way around it. They have a relatively expensive elite upgrade at 900 food and 750 gold compared to the Arbalester's 450 food and 400 gold. It's basically twice the cost. For that price, you get 5 more HP and a slight increase to your hidden bonuses against cavalry, etc., but that's about it. Arbalester, on the other hand, get the same +5 HP, but add in +1 attack, which might not sound like a big deal, but means elite Genoese crossbows lose most of their advantage against things like skirmishers or mangonels, where just that one more attack could at times double their effective damage. From what we get in each upgrade, it's clear the Arbalester is going to make up some ground, and if anything, the elite Genoese crossbow just really doubles down on the anti-cavalry role in particular, while still having one less range. Again, just to put some of these stats into perspective, Italian Arbalesters beat generic ones with nearly a quarter of their HP left, thanks to the tech Pavese giving them +1/+1 armor. Genoese crossbows basically split the difference, being able to beat generic Arbalesters with balanced resources, but lose to Italian, more heavily armored Arbalesters. The point is that Genoese crossbows have decent stats, and they're still good as a generic archer. It's just when they're compared to the Italians' above average Arbalester where they start to fall short. Now that said, the skirmisher dynamic in Imperial Age plays out quite differently than in Castle Age. If, for example, we have 15 generic Arbalesters against 10 elite skirmishers, the Arbalesters win with a few units left over. Clearly, in terms of resources, this isn't a balanced fight, but it's just for an illustration. If we swap those Arbalesters out for Italian ones, obviously they'll do even better, thanks to having a tiny bit more armor. Whereas in contrast, exchanging those Arbalesters for an equal value of elite Genoese crossbows, they seem to do the worst in this exchange. So despite looking much better in Castle Age, they're just not keeping up in Imperial. Likewise, against halberdiers, Arbalester is the clear choice, dealing 50% more damage per shot and with a cheaper cost to top it off. Both units also deal the same damage against more generic infantry like champions and even siege units, eroding another major advantage that the Genoese Crossbow had in Castle Age. You can see the Arbalester's +1 attack really takes the wind out of the elite Genoese Crossbow's sails in side-by-side comparisons. On the flip side, if you thought Genoese Crossbows were good against cavalry in Castle Age, they're about to get even better. The increase from +5 to +7 bonus damage means they end up needing just 9 shots against a Hussar compared to the Arbalester's 24. Even Arbalesters could be considered a soft counter to Hussars when massed, but Genoese Crossbows really take that to the next level. In a similar way, they completely reverse the usual dynamics against heavy cavalry archers, which can usually hold up against even Italian Arbalesters, though it becomes a one-sided rout once that anti-cavalry bonus damage comes in. The general rule is that against cavalry, you'll get around 3 times the damage from an elite Genoese crossbow, where just 18 of them can one-shot a fully upgraded paladin, as opposed to the 60 Arbalesters you would usually need for that type of firepower. Obviously, we have to mention ships as well, as a quirky side consideration, again dealing much more damage against galleons, but not fast fire ships. I don't know if this is a holdover from when camels and ships shared an armor class, or if it's an Italian naval connection, but I assume this quirk in their bonus damage has unexpectedly swung a game at least once in the past. More generally though, I have to say it's a notable flip in Imperial Age. Castle Age, I would say the Genoese Crossbow is the better unit all around compared to the Archer line, which is unfortunately a period of the game where the requirement of castles can make Genoese Crossbows hard to mass in practice. In Imperial Age then, just as you start to have the castles to really get them rolling, they suddenly turn into situational cavalry specialists, and feel like they trade their earlier versatility for even more extreme anti-cavalry specialization. Italians are lacking halberdier, so a late game answer to cavalry is something they really need. An anti-cavalry specialist being paired with hand cannons against infantry, or with condottieri as a meat shield against skirmishers can be a strong answer to some common army compositions you'll run into. Probably the most natural feeling Italian late game army also uses Genoese Crossbow as its basis, combined with Hussars to then cover a weakness to skirmishers or siege, then adding in discounted bombard cannons for a devastating answer to enemy onagers. Against the always popular cavalry and skirmisher combo, this is almost unfair, and you can even throw in the bombard tower to help fortify your position on the map as you push forward. Like many units, Genoese crossbows aren't really meant to be used entirely on their own, especially with their shorter range, so it's good to have some basic protection against threats like skirmishers and onagers. Speaking of basic protection and defense against threats, big thanks to this video's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. If you don't have one yet, personally, I consider VPNs to be one of those things that everyone should have. Without one, every website you visit knows your IP address, giving them a lot of personal info about your location, and also letting your internet service provider and potentially anyone else listening to track what you do online. Private browsing doesn't fix this, and every website out there basically gets the tech spies for free. A VPN though works like a black box, so your internet traffic will appear to go in and out of Surfshark servers with no identifying information, which can stop tracking by ISPs, advertisers, or websites, and even works on your phone against apps tracking your location. VPNs are also handy for getting around geographical restrictions, and many streaming services or even free sites can limit what content you can access based on your IP address. Surfshark has over 3,200 servers in 100 countries, letting you bypass those restrictions. In my opinion, everyone should have a VPN for a very basic level of privacy, security, and convenience, and Surfshark stands out for being a trusted popular brand and very affordable. They've also had independent audits confirm they don't keep activity logs or save any of your data, and not all VPNs are equal in that regard. Less reputable VPNs can secretly log your activity and sell it to third parties. Check out the link pinned below for more information, and if you use my code Spirit of the Law, you even get an extra 4 months free. Surfshark then has a 30-day refund policy as well, after which you get all the benefits of a VPN with a name you can trust for less than the cost of a cup of coffee per month. So that's a look at the Italian's Genoese crossbowmen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.